I never thought coming home would feel like walking onto a stranger's property. But there it was, the velvet rope stretched across my driveway, glinting in the afternoon sun, blocking my old truck from rolling any further. A valet stand sat where my weathered cattle trough used to be, and behind it, a cluster of people in fancy clothes laughed softly, glasses of wine in hand. My throat tightened. "Who the hell?" I muttered, climbing out of the truck. Before I could take 2 steps, a kid with a clip-on tie stepped forward, holding out a clipboard. "Sorry, sir, this is a private event." "Private event?" I spat, voice tighter than I wanted. "I live here. This is my land." He glanced over his shoulder, as if expecting backup, but none came. Instead, I spotted her, Celeste Whitmore. The woman in red heels on my porch, microphone in hand, like she owned the place. Well, maybe she thought she did. "And next up, Lot 7, she called, voice sweet but sharp as a razor. "Original timber beams, scenic pond access, bidding starts at 600,000. Her eyes never left the crowd. Lot 7 was my backyard. I clenched my fists, heart hammering. Celeste. She turned slowly, a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Ah, Mr. Randall. Or should I say absentee owner? Per HOA bylaw 642, your property is considered dormant after 30 days of inactivity. We're moving forward with redevelopment." I was gone 5 days. 5. I barked. "You can't just auction off my land while I'm away. Absence is measured by activity, not calendar days," she said, flipping a clipboard like she was reading from a script. "Security, please escort this man off the property." A knot twisted in my stomach as I looked around. The crowd didn't flinch, except one man in a sheriff's uniform who stepped forward, eyes scanning my deed. "Mr. Randall?" "That's me." I swallowed hard and handed over the laminated deed I kept in my glove box. The deputy nodded slowly, eyes still on the paper. "Looks legit. Ma'am, unless you have proof otherwise, you're going to have to stand down." Celeste's jaw tightened. "This is a civil matter," she snapped. "We'll let the lawyers handle it." I felt the weight of those words settle over me like a storm. My family's legacy was being sold off while I was out of town, and no one thought to tell me. But I wasn't going to let her walk away that easy. I stepped forward, voice low but steady. "This isn't over." She smiled then, cold, like the final snap of a trap. "No, Mr. Randall. It's just beginning." And that's when I realized I'd come home to a war. I sat at the kitchen table, the weight of yesterday's confrontation pressing down on me like a storm cloud. My mind was spinning through the pile of papers Ricky had gathered overnight, HOA notices, redevelopment claims, maps. It was worse than I thought. They'd declared my ranch dormant, reclassified the land, and were moving forward without a single word to me. I grabbed my phone and called Henry Tate, Dad's old lawyer. "Henry, I need to understand this mess. They're treating my property like it's abandoned." His voice was steady, worn but sharp. "Clay, you've got a fight on your hands, but it's not hopeless. HOA bylaws can be weapons, sure, but they're also rules. If we know them, we can find their cracks." "Cracks?" I echoed. "Yeah," he said, "loopholes, procedural mistakes, unsigned documents, they're playing fast and loose. We just need to catch them at it." The next morning, I drove into town and stopped by the county recorder's office. Kent, the clerk, recognized me right away. "Clay Randall, back to stir the pot," he joked, sliding a stack of files across the counter. "I'm trying to figure out what Celeste's done with my land while I was away," I said, flipping through pages. Kent lowered his voice. "You're up against a well-oiled machine. There's redevelopment claims filed less than a week ago. But look here, see this?" He pointed to a map. They're trying to fold your ranch into a broader zoning update, but the paperwork's messy. Missing signatures, unfiled amendments. I frowned. So they're bluffing? Kent shrugged. More like pushing boundaries. If you don't push back, they win by default. That afternoon, Henry and I pored over the documents at his office. He sipped lukewarm coffee from a chipped mug as he explained, "They're claiming your property is dormant based on bylaws about absence. But those bylaws hinge on activity, not calendar days. I was gone 5 days, not 30. I slammed my fist on the desk. How can they just redefine my land like that? Henry shook his head. They're using administrative technicalities. It's common in HOA battles, turn rules upside down to trap you. My jaw clenched. Feels like they're trying to erase my family's legacy. Henry's eyes softened. That's why we fight. We're not just defending land, we're defending history, identity. I took a deep breath, feeling the first flicker of hope. So, what's next? He smiled, the confidence steady in his voice. We learn their game better than they do. We gather evidence, exploit their mistakes, and hit back harder. I nodded, a plan forming. They might have started this war, but I was no stranger to the battlefield. My family's land wasn't going anywhere. Not without a fight. I walked up to the auction tent, trying to keep my face steady. Mark Walters, strategic land acquisition consultant, I whispered to the woman handing out badges. She gave me a sideways glance but didn't ask questions. Perfect. Inside, the air smelled like expensive wine and fake smiles. People in loafers and pearls sipped Chardonnay, chatting about investment potential and community vision. I scanned the crowd, then spotted Celeste on the tiny stage, her usual smug smile intact. I sidled up to a man in loafers who looked like he'd swallowed a lemon. I hear the ranch parcels are ripe for flipping, I said, voice low. He nodded cautiously. Yeah, the market's hot. Shame if someone drags regulatory bodies into it. Could slow things down. I let that hang between us. He blinked, unsure if I was threat or ally. Celeste caught my eye and narrowed it, but said nothing. That was the moment I knew she thought I was just another player, another ego with cash and crooked morals. I filled out the silent bid card for Lot 7, the backyard, my land. I wrote down a number double what she'd asked, with one condition: immediate possession and HOA override authority. When I handed it to an agent, she raised an eyebrow but didn't challenge me. I smiled inwardly. That bluff had landed. Later, Celeste's assistant, Nolan, shuffled papers nervously near the refreshments. I caught him alone and asked, "How often does the HOA review those zoning maps?" He glanced around. Irregularly. We're still waiting on county approvals for some updates." "That sounds flexible." "Yeah, I guess," he muttered. "Miss Whitmore's been pushing hard to get everything done." I nodded, filing that away. Celeste's empire was built on half-finished paperwork and deadlines nobody expected her to meet. Back near the auction, Celeste leaned in and whispered, "You're crazy, Mark." I shrugged. "Crazy enough to keep you guessing." She smiled, cold and sharp. "You don't have the funds. You're bluffing." "Maybe," I said, voice steady. "But bluffing is a strategy." She laughed, then turned away, leaving me with the unmistakable thrill of the fight beginning in earnest. That night, I sat with Henry, poring over every document Ricky and I had collected. "This is bigger than I thought," I said. Henry nodded slowly. "But you've rattled the cage. Celeste didn't expect a fight this smart." I smiled, tired but determined. This wasn't just about land anymore. It was about standing my ground, piece by piece. And I wasn't going anywhere. The morning after the auction, I found the fence near the south pasture cut loose, wire hanging like a noose. My heart sank. Someone didn't want me here. Later that day, the well pump failed for the third time in a week, even though I'd had it serviced just days before. And then the note appeared, taped to the barn door: "This land is under review. Stay out." No signature, just a warning. I called Ricky, my ranch hand. "You see anything weird around the place?" He sounded tense. "Strange trucks late at night. Unmarked. And someone's been tampering with the gates." "Same here." I rubbed my face, the weight of it all pressing down. It's more than harassment, it's a siege. That night, I went through my father's old things, looking for any edge, any weapon to fight back. In an old leather folder, I found the original deed, yellowed and creased, but intact. I scanned the pages until a line caught my eye. "Owner reserves unilateral veto over all third-party claims to land use in event of contested jurisdiction." I read it again, slower this time. A veto clause? I whispered to myself. The thought hit me like a thunderclap. My father had anticipated battles like this. He'd built a legal fortress where I thought there was only dirt and fences. The next morning, I called Henry. "I found something. A veto clause in the deed. It means I can block any unauthorized claims." Henry's voice was steady, but I could hear a flicker of excitement. "That's the kind of leverage we need, Clay. It changes the game. But it's buried deep in paperwork most folks wouldn't think to check." I exhaled slowly. No wonder they overlooked it. "That's your ace," Henry said. "But you'll have to use it carefully." Still, despite the hope, fear gnawed at me. They'd already shown they weren't afraid to play dirty. What if they escalated? What if this was just the beginning? I paced the porch, hands clenched around a cold cup of coffee. "They think they can wear me down," I muttered. "But they don't know who they're messing with." Ricky arrived just then, his weathered face grim. "I'll keep watch, boss. Ain't letting anyone mess with this place on my watch." The weight on my chest eased a little. I wasn't alone in this. That night, I locked every gate twice and sat by the window, listening for anything out of place. A part of me wanted to scream, to give up. But then I thought of Dad, of the years he spent building this ranch from scratch, and I clenched my jaw. I'm not giving up. Not now. Not ever. I met Ricky at the diner, a battered place with sticky tables and strong coffee. "Ricky, I need you to do something," I said, lowering my voice. "Sit in on the next HOA meeting. Take notes. Find out what they're really up to." He grinned, chewing on a fry. "You want me to crash a bunch of wine moms and their spreadsheets? Sounds like a hoot." "This isn't about laughs. It's about protecting the ranch." Ricky's eyes grew serious. "I'm in. Just say when." A few days later, he sent me a text, "Got the meeting schedule. They're meeting Thursday, 7 p.m., Community Center." Meanwhile, I cornered Nolan at the coffee shop near the auction site. "Nolan, you working for Celeste?" He looked startled, eyes darting. "Yeah, but it's complicated." "What's complicated?" He sighed. "She's pushing some zoning map updates that haven't been filed with the county. Off-the-book stuff." "Why?" "To speed things up. She says it's for the community," but, his voice trailed off. I pressed him harder, and eventually, Nolan let slip about forged signatures on some amendments, and misfiled documents meant to confuse anyone digging too deep. Back at Henry's office, the three of us spread maps and papers across the desk. Henry pointed to a document. "Look here, these signatures don't match official records. And this zoning map? Not filed properly. They're skating on thin ice." I felt a flicker of hope. "So it's not just smoke and mirrors?" "No," Henry said firmly. There's a real chance to push back legally. I thought about the neighbors, quiet folks who'd probably been scared into silence. Are they talking? Henry shrugged. Some are whispering. But fear keeps them from speaking out. Ricky came by the next day, leaning on the fence. People are watching now. They're asking questions. Good, I said. We need them on our side. Over the next week, Ricky reported back, the HOA was losing its grip. Rumors spread that the board was divided, and some members weren't happy with Celeste's heavy-handed tactics. I called Henry late one night. It's more than just my fight now. The community's starting to wake up. That's when things get interesting, he said. I realized then I wasn't just a lone rancher battling powerful forces. I had allies. Loyal friends, curious neighbors, and a lawyer who believed in justice as much as I did. The fight was far from over, but I wasn't facing it alone anymore. And that made all the difference. Henry was already deep into the paperwork when I walked into his office, papers scattered like battlefield maps. Got something for you, I said, dropping a fresh stack of documents on his desk. He didn't look up. Motions filed, audits requested. Celeste's team is pushing back with every trick in the book. She sent a cease and desist letter this morning. Henry smirked. That means they're rattled. Intimidation is their first line of defense. I ran a hand through my hair. Feels like a war I'm not trained for. Legal battles are mental marathons, Henry said. You've got to outthink them, not just outfight. He pointed at a document. Here's where the auxiliary parcel comes in. I leaned in. The undeclared piece of land? Exactly. That little strip wasn't merged into the main property officially. HOA can't claim jurisdiction there. I smiled despite the weight on my shoulders. So we stall them. Henry nodded. We file a motion to get that parcel officially recognized, which triggers a public hearing, delays, reviews, and headaches for Celeste's plans. That afternoon, I sat on my porch, going over the strategy. Every delay was a win, buying time to build a stronger case. But the pressure was mounting. Celeste's not just fighting me, I told Ricky over the phone. She's trying to choke the ranch with bureaucracy. Ricky's voice was calm but firm. We keep pushing. They can't bury us under paper forever. Days turned into weeks. I spent hours on calls, emails, meetings, trying to keep my nerves steady. One morning, Henry called. They're escalating. Code enforcement complaints, noise violation threats. Classic, I said bitterly. Trying to wear me down. Henry's tone was steady. Keep your head. We're forcing their hand. Every step forward felt like dragging a boulder uphill. But the stakes were too high to quit. I'm not just defending my land anymore, I told Henry. I'm fighting for everything my family built. He paused, then said, that kind of fight changes a man. I stared out at the fields, the ranch feeling more like a battlefield than home. But beneath the exhaustion, something stronger was growing, determination. This wasn't just survival. It was war by paper and patience. And I was ready. I woke up to Hank growling at the back gate. Outside, the night was too quiet. The next morning, I found one of the heifers limping near the creek, a clean cut on her front leg. Fresh barbed wire, something that wasn't there before. Someone had set a trap. I called Ricky, voice tight. We got trouble. This wasn't an accident. He cursed softly. They're getting desperate. That afternoon, my internet went down, again. Just like the well pump trips and the tampered fences, it wasn't random. I sat in the dark, flashlight in one hand, shotgun in the other, wondering how far they'd go. Clay, you alright? Ricky's voice was rough over the phone. Barely. I rubbed my eyes. I'm running on empty. Don't let them break you. You're stronger than this. I wanted to believe him, but the night stretched long and sleepless. Every noise outside made me jump. Every shadow looked like an enemy. One evening, I stood by the porch, staring at the empty fields. What if I'm losing? I whispered to the wind. The ranch that felt like home was turning into a cage. The weight of constant vigilance was crushing. I tried to focus on the fight, but doubt crept in, uninvited and stubborn. Henry called that night. How are you holding up? I hesitated. I'm scared, Henry. This is more than I bargained for. He didn't soften. Good. Fear sharpens you. But don't let it consume you. I'm tired, I admitted. Tired of the noise, the waiting, the uncertainty. You're not alone, he reminded me. Remember why you're fighting. That hit me hard. I thought of Dad, the years he poured into this land, the legacy I swore to protect. I swallowed my fear and nodded, even though he couldn't see me. I'm not giving up. But that night, as I lay awake, I felt the cost. The isolation, the anxiety, the cracks forming inside me. It was a dark place, but somewhere in that darkness, I found a sliver of grit. This wasn't just about property anymore. It was about survival, mine, the ranch's, my family's name. I clenched my fists. If they thought fear would make me back down, they were wrong. Dead wrong. I was digging through Dad's old desk late one night when I found it, his journal. Dusty, worn, with pages yellowed by time. I flipped to a page marked with a red underline, and there it was: they only win if you give up your peace before they take your land. Those words hit me harder than anything Celeste had thrown my way. It wasn't just about fighting the law or the HOA. It was about holding on to who I was, my family, my home, my peace. I sat there, pen in hand, and started writing. Not a legal brief or a complaint, just a letter. Honest, raw, telling the story of what was happening to my ranch, to my family's legacy. I wrote about Celeste's lies, the forged documents, the quiet intimidation that was choking us all. The next morning, I drove through town, dropping copies of that letter in every mailbox I could find. I didn't ask for support, just eyes, people to see the truth. A few days later, Ricky called, his voice full of hope. You won't believe it, Clay. People are talking. Neighbors who never said a word before are asking questions now. Good, I said, feeling a warmth I hadn't in weeks. At the feed store, Mrs. Jenkins nodded as I walked in. Heard about your letter, she said quietly. Took guts. We're behind you. That afternoon, I watched from the porch as a group of locals gathered near the community center. They were nervous but curious, ready to stand up, finally. Then the cracks in Celeste's empire started to show. Board members whispered in corners, arguments broke out in hushed tones. I heard rumors that some were questioning her leadership for the first time. I caught Nolan at the grocery store. He avoided my eyes but muttered, "Things are changing." Celeste's confident facade was slipping, and I felt it too, a shift in the air, a new energy. Henry called with a rare smile in his voice. You're not just fighting for your land anymore. You're leading a movement. That was the moment I realized I'd stepped out of the shadows of doubt and fear. I was no longer just defending what was mine, I was fighting for everyone who'd been silenced or pushed aside. Standing on the porch, I looked out over the fields and felt something settle inside me, a quiet strength. This fight wasn't just about land anymore. It was about truth, justice, and reclaiming peace. And I was ready to lead. I stood at the podium, clutching the folder tight enough to make my knuckles white. The room was quiet, but inside, my heart was pounding like a drum. This was it, the moment everything came down to. Mr. Randall, you may begin, the chairman said, eyes steady behind his glasses. I took a breath. Thank you. I spread the documents on the table, original deeds, maps showing the auxiliary parcel, and the forged HOA papers Celeste had tried to use against me. This, I said, pointing to the deed, is the foundation of my family's claim. Signed by my grandfather, sealed by the county in 1937. The board members leaned in. This auxiliary parcel, I continued, has never been merged officially into the main property. It's undeclared, outside HOA jurisdiction. A murmur ran through the room. I passed around copies, watching the faces change. Henry stepped forward then, calm and authoritative. Members of the board, the evidence is clear. Celeste Whitmore's filings contain forged signatures and misfiled documents. Attempts to claim jurisdiction over this parcel are not only baseless, they're illegal. He laid out a timeline of Celeste's maneuvers, redevelopment claims rushed without proper approval, secret meetings, and fabricated amendments. The room shifted. The weight of truth was pressing down. Celeste sat stiffly, flipping through her binder, lips tight. When the chairman asked her to respond, her voice cracked under the scrutiny. These documents, they were submitted in good faith. Henry raised an eyebrow. Good faith does not excuse forgery or misrepresentation. The tension was electric. Every eye was on her now, searching for cracks. She deliberately obscured records to push her agenda, Henry said softly but firmly. This is not governance, it's manipulation. I felt a swell of vindication, but I kept my voice steady. This fight has been about more than property. It's about truth. The chairman nodded slowly. We will recess for 5 minutes before voting. I stepped back, breath shallow, muscles tense like I was underwater holding my breath. When the board returned, the room held its breath with me. The board unanimously rules in favor of Mr. Randall, the chairman announced. All HOA claims against Parcel 48 and its auxiliary are rescinded immediately. Relief and disbelief hit me in waves. I shook Henry's hand, the weight of weeks lifting in an instant. As Celeste gathered her things, I caught her eye. Her smile was gone, replaced by something colder, a quiet resignation. The war wasn't over, not yet, but this battle was won. Walking out, I realized the truth and perseverance had carried me this far, and would carry me all the way home. The moment the board's decision was announced, relief crashed over me like a long-awaited rain. All HOA claims against Parcel 48 are rescinded. Those words rang in my ears as I gathered my papers. I turned to Henry, who nodded quietly, the exhaustion clear in his eyes. It's done. Outside the county building, the news spread fast. I caught whispers, neighbors talking, some with cautious smiles. Ricky clapped me on the back, grinning. You did it, boss. But the victory was bittersweet. Celeste wasn't just defeated, she was unraveling. Her resignation came 2 days later, no fanfare, no apologies, just a brief statement about personal reasons. I heard her inner circle was dissolving. Donna was seen trying to sneak into a water aerobics class, Marcus delivering Amazon packages part-time, and Brad, her fixer, pulling out of ongoing lawsuits. Yet the scars remained. The ranch still felt raw, like a wound healing slowly. I sat on the porch, watching Hank doze under the old oak tree. The breeze stirred memories, Dad's laughter, the seasons we'd weathered, the land that had been more than dirt and fences. Henry called one evening. You've changed, Clay. I smiled softly. Yeah. This fight, it's taken everything and given me something too. I'm not the same man who walked onto that velvet rope. He chuckled. Sometimes, that's the price of standing your ground. I thought about the sleepless nights, the threats, the doubt gnawing at me. Do you think it's really over? Henry's voice was steady. Battles like this don't just end. They evolve. But you've built something stronger, proof, allies, and a story that won't be forgotten. That gave me a strange comfort. Walking through the fields, I felt the weight of what was lost and what was saved. This ranch was more than property now, it was a symbol. I wasn't sure what the future held, but I knew one thing: I wouldn't back down again. I looked at the sunset, the sky bleeding orange and purple. The fight had changed me, marked me, but it hadn't broken me. And maybe, that was victory enough. The morning air was crisp as I walked down to the irrigation canal, a bag of sunflower seeds in my hand. Planting them one by one, I thought about what they represented: new growth, hope, something lasting beyond all the noise. Ricky joined me, nodding toward the rows of freshly turned earth. "Looks like the ranch is coming back to life." "More than just the land," I said. "Feels like me too." Life was settling into a new rhythm. The fences were patched, the gates locked tight, and the ranch felt like home again, quiet, steady, real. Then came the letter, an invitation embossed with county seals. I read it twice. "Mr. Randall, your case has been selected for review at the upcoming HOA Accountability Symposium. Your experience is invaluable for shaping future zoning laws." I smiled, the irony not lost on me. From being blindsided to becoming the voice of change. At Henry's office, I told him about the invitation. He grinned. "You're making history, Clay." "I never wanted this fight," I said. "But it made me realize how important it is to stand up. Not just for me, but for everyone who can't." Henry nodded. "That's the legacy you're building." Late that night, I sat by the window, watching the stars blink over the ranch. The land felt peaceful now, like it had been waiting for me to find my footing. I thought about all I'd lost and gained, the sleepless nights, the threats, the moments when giving up seemed easier. But I hadn't. And I wouldn't. This fight wasn't just about ownership, it was about respect, for the land, the past, and the future. I thought about Dad, the man who'd built this from nothing, who'd left me more than deeds and fences, he'd left me a story to protect. And now, I was ready to pass that story on. Because justice isn't a final destination, it's a journey, one that demands persistence and heart. I stood, brushing dirt from my hands, and looked out over the fields. The seeds I'd planted would grow. The ranch would thrive. And so would I. I was sitting on the porch when I first noticed it. A drone, low and slow, hovering just above the southern pasture. Not high enough to be out of sight, but close enough to make my skin crawl. I grabbed my binoculars, heart racing. The drone dipped behind the old silo, then I spotted the driver, a man in an SUV parked just out of view. License plate from Arizona. I didn't hesitate. I fired up the ATV and headed toward the spot, keeping low behind cottonwoods. As I got close, I tapped on the window. He jumped, hands gripping the steering wheel tight. "Lost?" I asked, voice steady. He didn't answer, just started the engine. I snapped a photo of the plate as he peeled out, dust trailing behind him like the trail of a busted scheme. Back at the ranch, I sent the photo to Henry. His voice came through on the phone, low and knowing. "Brad Cololton. His firm's trying to rewrite their story, documenting folks they lost." I chuckled despite myself. He thinks he's writing a redemption arc. "More like ghostwriting one," Henry said. The fight wasn't over. New players were stepping onto the board, and the rules had changed again. But I wasn't the same man who'd been caught off guard months ago. With Ricky watching the gates and neighbors keeping eyes on the edges, I felt the strength of a community behind me, a force bigger than any piece of paper or legal trick. I thought about all those who had written, shared their stories, stood up in their own corners of the country. People who planted their boots and said, "Not today." I wasn't looking for a hero's story. I just wanted to protect what was mine. But if they wanted a story, if they wanted a fight, they were about to get one. I looked out over the land, the sunset casting long shadows across the fields. This was just the beginning. And I was ready.